So while Maureen pulls up her slides, I'm kind of curious to get the chat going. Are any of you gardening at home? What are we doing at home? Are we planting in the yard and flower boxes? Feel free to put that in the chat, and I'll let you go ahead and kick it off, Maureen.
Great, thank you so much. It's really nice to be here and fun to talk about a topic that I'm not really good at, but I love. So you do not have to have a green thumb to be able to garden. So it's kind of for a lot of us, it's a trial and error, but there are a lot of other benefits that actually come along with it. So let's go ahead and move on to that next slide. So this is what we're going to talk about today. Really how gardening, regardless of big or small, that it really affects us beneficially on many different levels. We're also going to talk about how the early doctors of the 17th and 18th century already knew this. So we're going to discuss that a little bit. They were very smart doctors back then. They didn't have a lot of medicine, but they did use gardening. And how you can have a garden, whether you live in the middle of the city, or if you live in a condo or don't have any yard, or if you're out in the country and have acres. It's really for everybody. Like Megan describes, I mean, she has her patio. One of our other coworkers just shared with me that she's just doing indoor planting right now, but hopes to move to outdoor planting. So really it's whatever works for you. It's a very flexible type of hobby. And then we're going to take a tour of the Annie Cox Chambers garden, which is, you saw in some of the videos here as Megan was doing the introduction. That is a garden that we have here at the Cognitive Empowerment Program, specifically designed for those with mild cognitive impairment. I will point out a few ideas of how it was actually designed that may help you specifically for older adults. And so we'll go through that. And then I have a few specialized or adaptive type gardening tools that are geared towards older bodies, being able to continue to garden. So basically gardening, as you see here, it is physically, emotionally, and mentally beneficial. It covers all the bases. And there's a lot of ways to adapt that depending on your interest. And again, no green thumb required. I do not have a green thumb. My husband has a green thumb. He can plant anything and it will grow. And if it doesn't grow, he moves it somewhere else and then it grows. So, but I'm very careful in how I touch the soil and just make sure it's just so. And then sometimes the results aren't so good, but he seems to do it very fast and moves along. And I don't know, he just has the touch. He has one of those green thumbs. So throughout history, gardening has been a thing, and gardens. And so the first one, that we know about was back in 2000 BC in Mesopotamia. Also, there were hospice gardens in France. They were in a monastery, and they were the first ones, the first group of people that realized the benefits of gardening for those people who were in hospice care. I want to introduce you to Dr. Benjamin Rush. This guy had a very big impact on the development of psychiatry as a medical field. So he worked specifically with men who suffered from mania. And that's a situation where a person is very agitated, has difficulty focusing, gets very angry, very physical, and can't seem to manage, their emotions. And so we didn't have the medications that we do now that can help. So this doctor thought, I'm going to divide my group of men who I'm working with. One, I will have them do gardening and dig in the dirt for hours. And then the other, we won't. And we'll see what happens to see if gardening has an impact. And as you may guess, sure enough, the men who had mania, who were in the garden working, noticed their symptoms, and the doctor noticed their symptoms subsiding. They were calmer, they were able to focus, as opposed to the others who did not do the activity. Believe it or not, this is the nephew of the doctor that we just saw on the other screen. He's also a psychiatrist. This guy came around the early 1900s. And he's known as the father of occupational therapy, which is the profession that I am involved in, educated in. But this guy talked about this term called purposeful activity. And that's something that we use throughout occupational therapy. It's purposeful because it's purposeful to the person who is doing it, right? That is the key, to find something that engages the mind and the body. And so that's often our job as an occupational therapist. We work with people who perhaps have a very difficult hand or arm injury, and we learn what they like to do. So we try to incorporate the activity that they enjoy into the exercises to help build the muscles of the hand and arm. So that's kind of how that ties in. And this doctor in particular, he believes that all sorts of purposeful activities could help people. So he had a group of women who were depressed and anxious. And so he decided to try them with quilting. So they took a big quilt. He specifically selected materials that were very brightly colored, right, to stimulate the senses, the eyes, and he found it to be very valuable. The women not only began stitching, but they began communicating with one another. And that's very important. Also, he talks about purposeful activity as being sewing. Again, this is individual. So someone may find sewing very interesting. So we would want to gear in towards, specific interests. Also things like painting, poetry, fishing, stamp collecting, music, writing, and of course, gardening. The interesting thing about this doctor is that he believed, and I think this is very important, that a person should have a hobby indoors and outdoors. And it's the first time I've ever heard that. This is his idea, and I think it's really wonderful. So therapeutic gardening is what we call it, is what we call a non-pharmaceutical but purposeful activity. And what it does is it improves the overall well-being of that individual. It helps modulate stress responses and mood, like we talked about with some of the clients that the doctors treated. It helps stabilize sleep cycles, the sleep-wake cycle, because you're outside in the sunlight and your body adapts to that. Some pain reduction just by moving the body and being outside and using the joints and muscles. That also helps strengthening, especially if you're doing some heavy digging or lifting and carrying pots. It really helps with strength. If you have a neighborhood garden or family or friends, it promotes socialization, or even, just walking through your neighborhood and, seeing the neighbors' flowers and stopping and talking. I mean, that's socialization, again, around gardening. So we believe it also helps with memory, attention, and problem solving. And that's because there is a living little plant here, whether it's on your windowsill or outside, that you need to take care of. You need to remember to water it, right? Stick your finger in it and it's dry, add the water. It requires a person to maintain attention to be able to do that. And then what happens if it's not growing? It's brown, it's not working. Well, maybe problem solving and thinking maybe this plant would do better in another part of my house, right? I could move it to a different spot outside, or I could move it to a different window that gets a little more sun. So it does challenge the brain as well. And again, this is kind of more of the same, what it does, but sunlight is also a big factor when we're outside. Of course, we have to be a little careful about that, right? But again, the morning sun helps improve the melatonin production in our bodies, and that in turn can help us regulate our sleep. So we will fall asleep better at night. Also helps with keeping a daily routine, improving our mood, as we've talked about. And that's specifically because of a hormone called serotonin. And the sunlight is responsible for producing that serotonin. Also, we believe that it's helpful for stress reduction. And I would challenge you to just go walk through a park if you're feeling stressed, walk through a local park, go look at your neighbor's flowers, and you will feel just the stress just falling right off of you. It's just amazing how that works. And then also it has some very direct benefits for the immune system and regarding our vitamin D levels. So another side of gardening that I really love is the sensory side. So It challenges our senses. So we're touching the flowers, we're touching the dirt, we're working through that with our hands. We're looking visually at the beautiful flowers and bushes and seeing what we're planting. We smell them, right? We literally smell the flowers, the herbs, especially. Some give off tremendous fragrance, which is beautiful. And then the sound of flowing water. You know, some of the public parks, they'll have water, and that just adds another sense of relaxation, right? So it's an overall sense of peacefulness. So again, just we do need to find a little bit of balance. I'm sure you know this. So if you're outside working in your garden, you know, just a little bit of sun is good. According to the American Academy of Dermatology, we should wear sunscreen hats and long sleeves, you know, if you're out during those strong sun times of the day. I think we all know about that pretty much in the Southeast. So this picture here is a picture of the Annie Cox Chambers Garden. And this is located right here at the Cognitive Empowerment Program. And it's a garden that we use for our members and clients. And we actually love it. There are 5 raised beds, and I'll show you some more pictures here. We've just recently planted. We replant usually every springtime, but we do have some perennials. We have 5 raised beds. And these raised beds were specifically designed by a horticultural therapist who we know locally, and he did a great job. And so these are designed so people who maybe have low endurance can sit, right? You can sit and garden. A wheelchair can push up to that, and you can garden. It avoids bending over too far if someone has issues with back, and at some ages we kind of all do. We'd rather have things elevated, right? So this is a picture of one of the flower beds. The nice thing that Kirk, the horticultural specialist, designed was a drip bed. So that means when the irrigation system in this entire area of CEP, our Cognitive Empowerment Program, is turned on, it also turns on to these beds through drip irrigation. So we have little lines running through the soil here that actually waters them for us, which is just wonderful. Having that is a big luxury. So just a couple of things structurally about how this is built. As you see, it's a level surface. So we want it level. You have 2 different tones. So you have the concrete, which is nice, all light colored, right? So it's easy for us to see. No heavy designs. Simplicity is how it was designed. It's also circular, so you can't get lost. There's only one entrance and one exit. Having a grassy surface for a garden can be a little challenging, especially for older adults, because hitting like a little bump in the ground can get somebody off balance. So this solid surfacing is a little bit better. And as you notice, we don't have pavers either. So there's no moss or anything growing or uneven, you know, bricks. It's very even surfaced. And we do have people with walkers, some with wheelchairs that come down and enjoy the garden. We fortunately have a ramp where they can just wheel down. We also have a lot of different seating at comfortable levels, often with armrests. So it's very easy for someone to sit and then push themselves back up. Excuse me, we want to avoid anything with a rolling base, no rolling chairs or seats, because that would be a high risk for our clients falling. Really, any older adult. Older adult is considered 65 and older, according to the CDC. So it doesn't seem that old, but that's the criteria. This is kind of one of my favorite things, because this was not originally in our garden. This is the water spigot, and it was positioned, you can see the cuff on that pipe. It was positioned much lower, and I asked that it be brought up. So it's about 3.5 feet. So now it's at about waist level, which is much easier for the clients to reach it, right? It also had a circular handle. So anybody with arthritis was going to have a hard time squeezing that and turning it. And so I asked that they change this to a lever. So it's much easier. It can just be hit with the palm of the hand back and forth, and it works really nicely. So just want to point out that that's a really lovely garden that we happen to have at CEP, and we're very blessed to have that. But gardening does not have to be that complicated, or that fancy, really. It can just be very simple. And there are a lot of herbs that you can just grow inside. So here's a picture of thyme. It's hardy, it's low growing, and does well. Oh, sorry, this is a picture of mint. I'm sure somebody would correct me on that. This is mint. Mint and rosemary also do very well inside. You want to keep these, of course, in the proper light, but also a place where you have to see them regularly. So it will remind you to, like, oh yeah, I gotta tend to that. Well, I think I better check the chat here. I'm really sorry about that. Someone is saying that they can hear and understand, but it's low audio. Okay, I do not want to interrupt Maureen's focus. Well, thank you, that's okay. So then someone also is, maybe we can work on that. And then, yes, this, Benita says, it's important to, if you keep trying and you keep killing the plants on your porch, haha, maybe it makes sense to not waste too much money if you have limited sun exposure. Yeah, that's true. And then some decks have a limited exposure. Okay, this one is also saying she's wasted money and no yard. So maybe it's time to go inside and look for things that require very low lighting, right? I think that's a good idea. Actually, one of the things that I noticed recently at, I guess it was Lowe's or Home Depot, they actually are selling indoor plants that have on the base of them a little piece of material that comes underneath the plant. And so you can fill up the base of the water in the pot itself, put the plant in, and then the water will slowly soak up through this pipe and kind of self-water, which is really cool. So we will do that. Oh, excuse me. So there we are with our herbs. And one thing I want to say about this, it was a bit ago, but when we were starting the gardening program here, we ordered a lot of simple clay pots. And this is something you could do at home. Little clay pots are not expensive. There may be $1.25 at a lot of the craft stores. And we decorated them. So we had the clients paint them. And so we painted them, and then we sealed them. And then we had the next class, the next week, we had everybody come back, and then they planted herbs in their pots. And so it was just such a fun activity. And we had directions on, how to take care of whatever your herb was. And then they were able to get their picture taken and take that home. But that's something you could even do with your friends or family, is just get a few herbs. The herbs themselves are also maybe $1. So you could almost do this project for like $2 and have some herbs that you could even put in your whatever you're eating in the evening. Okay, if you don't have a lot of success, maybe a succulent. They work as long as the pot has some drainage. And they usually, if you don't have any sun, that could be a problem. So you do need a little bit of sun, about 6 hours, but usually they're pretty easy to grow. And chives. Chives are another, they're kind of fun. They're, the onions, right? So a nice onion flavor and smell. We put these out in our garden this year at CEP. They seem to be coming up very well, no problem at all. Again, they would like 6 hours of sun too. And so you just got to feel if they're a little dry, add some water. But I found that the people, especially if you go to a garden store, they're really good about telling you exactly how to take care of your plant. You can write it down and put it in your notebook so you'll remember the details of what they tell you, but they really are very helpful. Let's see, we have another message here. Okay, Michael, over the past 2 years, I've been gardening for the first time. My sister, who is a masterful gardener, has been guiding me hands-on a weekly basis. Well, that's really nice. This has benefited me in all the ways Maureen has listed. Oh, including quality time with my sister. Well, Michael, thank you very much. I'm glad you're having that experience, because I find the same, and it can be a master gardener, or it can be on a very simplistic level, of just doing little herbs or a little tiny flower pot. So yeah, thanks for sharing that. Yeah, let's see, we'll move to the next slide here, guys. Next, I have a couple of specialized tools that I like because, you know, a lot of us have maybe a little arthritis in the thumb or a little bit of pain here or there in the back. And so I wanted to show you some things that are out there that are really designed for older adults. This is a new item that I have come across, and it is called the multi-grip trowel. So you would grip your hand on the peg on the top of the trowel here, and then it kind of rests your forearm on the rest of it like this. And so you're digging with this motion. So it's really designed for someone who maybe has a little bit of weaker grip, pain in their hands, pain with arthritis, and it gives support into the forearm and allows you to use the larger muscles of your body instead of having so much stress on the smaller muscles. And let's see our next one. Well, this is just an ultimate favorite of mine. I have no stock in this company. Some of the members here will say, "You're always telling us you like liquor, you know, this or that. Do you own stock in the company?" No, I don't. But these are Fiskars. So Fiskars is a really great company, and we use the scissors on the bottom here. They're designed for arthritic hands, and we have a blanket making program, and we use these for that purpose. And they are just tremendous. They last year after year. They're very solidly made. You can get them anywhere, you know, from Walmart to, you know, any place like that. But as I was doing this PowerPoint, I came across that they also have gardening tools. I don't have this type of gardening tools, but I like how they make things. And so as you see, it's a nice ergonomic design. They have the larger handle, a non-slip handle, which is going to be easier to hold and grasp. So, you know, if you're looking for a new set, you could, you know, check the Fiskars out. This is another, it's an angled one, and this is also going to be gentler by keeping the wrist in neutral. So there's a large grasp here, as you see, a larger grip. So you grab that. So even if the small joints are painful, it's a larger grip, which should make it more comfortable, and you will still have that power grip. And then you use more of the arm as opposed to that wrist motion and the small joints of our hands, which are the ones that usually get affected first by injury and arthritis. And this is another one, which I actually just purchased for us at home. All of these I have located on Amazon. This one is called the Back EZ. And the goal is for an individual not to have to bend over, right? Not to have to flex your back down, because that position is not good for our back, but to stay in a more upright positioning while working. And so it's this little plastic piece here. And it's about $10, and it comes with an Allen wrench and a few little screws, and you attach it about midway down the shaft of the rake or the shovel that you're using. So you can hold on, as you see in the picture, it reduces the bending, so you hold on midway and at the top. So that would be really great if you have any sort of a back issue. And last but not least, this is called a Zoom broom. And this is a blower for leaves. And the reason I'm showing you this is because it's very lightweight. It has a lot of good reviews from an OT group that I belong to. It's cordless and battery powered. It has a lot of power though, and that's the thing that the therapists really liked about it. And also the fact that it's really light and easy to use for anybody. So, you know, if you're just not into thinking, I don't want to, you know, get the soil and have to deal with managing, you know, plants, that's fine. But you can still enjoy a lot of those emotional and psychological benefits by just looking at a garden, right? So just admiring the flowers. Walking through your neighborhood, or, you know, taking a visit to a park and just taking it in, being outside and just looking. It's very powerful. So, you know, if you want to do a couple pots, or if you want to do an acre, you know, it's all up to you, whatever works for you. But it surely has really great emotional and psychological and physical benefits. So I want to thank you for listening today, and we'll see if there's any more comments in the chat. I am not sure about that, but we can see.